Hey Effie, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Very, very good. So thank you so much for joining me on this call. I've been doing these interviews of successful clients who have completed the program, and I think they are incredibly useful to help others who may be interested in embarking on a journey like this for themselves. And I feel these interviews can help someone understand the process that we go through. And everyone has such a unique journey and working with you and what you've accomplished, I loved your story and I think it's a great one to tell. So thank you so much for being here and ready to share that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Um, just to get things started, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your profession.
So I'm from Toronto. I grew up there. I went away to school for a few years, closer to like over 10. And then I went to medical school. I'm now doing sleep medicine primarily. I'm also a respirologist. And then after I finished school, I relocated back to Toronto and I'm practicing there and in the GTA area.
Okay, great, great. We got a lot of healthcare professionals on Mighty Transformation, so you've been a great addition. And I'm just curious I always wonder why people come to this program or what is the why or the reasoning that they did that and maybe the things that you were struggling with. Could you kind of characterize that, where you were
Sure.
coming from?
Sure. I mean, I'm sure my story is very similar to at least other healthcare workers or even any busy person. You're so busy doing things for other people, focusing on your career, focusing on your family, being a caregiver, that eventually things start to slip and, you don't have necessarily genetics on your side or things start to add up over time. You get a little bit older and you really notice that your body is changing. And I was no exception. And, I had noticed some changes. I was trying to implement positive changes. I had, you know, tried to be more careful about the way I ate and drank. And I tried to be more careful about exercise, which I had been doing for some time at that point. And, I was looking in the mirror one day and I was like, what I'm doing is not working. And I spent a lot of time talking to people about their weight, especially in sleep medicine, because being heavier increases your risk of having other sleep problems and other health problems that are related to sleep. And, often I talk to people in my clinic and they tell me they struggle with their weight. And some people have just given up. Some people have tried a bunch of things that they failed or are yo-yoing. And some people have never even tried. And I sometimes would look at them thinking, you know, at what point do you see where your life is at and think, I need to put on the brakes and make a change? And my weight was creeping up and I was looking in the mirror and I was thinking that, like maybe it's time for the breaks. Like what is the point where I just reach out for help? And that's, I knew of you very loosely from another friend who had done the program and she had done your program several years ago and I've been out with her and she looked great and she's healthy and eating and I had asked her what did you do? And she's like, oh, like these minor changes. And I'm like, oh, you want to share? And she's like, oh, it's kind of different for everyone. And I'm like, okay. So I didn't even talk to her before I started following you on Instagram. And then you reached out to me right away. And I appreciated how motivated you seem to be to like talk to people and figure out what they want to accomplish and how you can help them with that. And that's how we ended up together.
Yeah, yeah, we're talking about Shivani, who has inspired so many people and ladies who've done this program. I'm curious, though, you said, a lot of great reasons here, but was there a defining trigger or moment that said, you know what, maybe
There's
this now's the time to
I
do
don't know.
something?
I don't know if there was like one moment. I am getting older. I do notice changes. I'm a very active person. I wanted to remain healthy. I think health was a big focus for me, especially like as a healthcare provider. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to be telling people you need to lose weight and you need to focus on your health. And then I wasn't doing that. I really wanted to be a good example for the people around me. That was really important for me. And I'm also hyper aware that, you can feel good in your skin. I was still wearing, tight clothes and going out. Like I wasn't hiding myself, but I knew that my body was not how it was supposed to be. And I have a painful awareness of I just didn't want to be on medication long term. I didn't want to develop high blood pressure. I didn't want to develop sleep problems. I didn't want to develop diabetes or other things that increase, inflammation in the joints. Like there's so many things that this touches that it wasn't as much as I won't lie, everybody wants to look good in their clothes and take a photo and look good, but it was also about feeling like I was loving myself enough to prioritize myself and respecting what I do for a living so that I could be a good example for the people that I talk to every day. Having a first degree connection to someone who's made a positive change brings you closer to that positive change, like we look at so much going on right now in social media and AI and you know, I mean, you can make me blue with one click of a button. Couldn't you make me skinny too? Like whereas if somebody sees someone that they know and they're like, "Wow, that person did it. That person's normal. That person, I go out for dinner with that person and they're not pushing two lettuce leaves across the plate." For me, that was like if I can do that, if I can make good changes and other people see them, sometimes good changes are as important as for being contagious as bad changes,
Right.
so there were a lot of reasons. I wanted to be that example for my family, for my friends. I wanted to know that I was prioritizing myself, which is often very hard to do. And it was just that time. It was just that time.
I love it. It's a very leadership role and that mindset. And we do get a lot of healthcare workers on the program, nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians such as yourself. And you guys all say the same things is because of that knowledge of what can happen if we don't take care of ourselves. And also at the same time, you guys are always talking about uh, health for your patients and delivering this information, but also trying to do that for yourself to show them, right? Because it's one thing to say it, but one thing to actually preach it, walking the talk. And I find like all you guys had that same common goal is, I got to prioritize myself as well, because then it's going to show, if I fix myself and, improve myself inwardly, it's going to show externally to my patients, to my family, my friends. And it's a beautiful why. I love hearing that. And I think healthcare professionals, especially, you guys have such a strong connection to this and the why that when you guys make those changes, it just ripples out so positively to everyone else. And we'll talk about that because we've already influenced so many people to doing this program. So thanks for sharing that. Uh, if you could, because everyone's experience is so different, as you and Shivani talked about, for you in particular, what do you feel, maybe that what do you feel you benefited the most from this approach, or what was unique about this approach compared to other things that you may have experienced yourself or you've seen other people do?
Oh, that I mean, there were so many things, and it's a un I mean, I had never done a structured program before. For me, it was all, self-led. I'm in medicine, I understand nutrition, I can figure out how to calorie count. I think, the things that I really appreciated about the program, number one is being accountable. You said it right at the beginning. You have to show up every day. Sometimes I showed up every other day, but it got there. But I think accountability is something that when you have someone to partner with in that, it really changes how you view it than being accountable to yourself. Because, as we said when we first met before we had even decided to proceed, I had told you I'd tried calorie counting and then I'd go out for dinner and I just have no idea what I'm doing and it was just all up in the air, right? And then I had no idea where I was at. Um, Whereas being accountable, having to process what was going on during the dinner, having your help to sort it out, etc., that was a really important step for me. And that accountability also ended up, it's like a mindfulness. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it sort of made you realize what your relationship with food was. I already knew I was not an emotional or stress eater. I already knew I wasn't that much of a snacker. Like that was easy, but it was about like how I made choices like that example I gave you about do I really prefer chicken fingers or pizza, you know?
Right.
And Like what am I doing? Like why did I make that choice? And I think that's something like on some level I would have never examined if I didn't have to like discuss what I was eating every day. And then there was like little tips and tricks, like a lot of the things, when I talk to people about how I did this program and some of the changes that I've made, a lot of them were not big changes. In fact, I don't think I had any big changes. Everything I felt was a slight modification, and I think that also made it much more doable for me. I didn't feel like I couldn't eat dessert. I didn't feel like I couldn't go on a holiday, which I spent a lot of time doing. Um, I didn't too much time maybe. Um, I didn't feel like I couldn't go and enjoy a family event. Like I never felt like I had to be restricted and there was nothing I could eat and what am I going to do? And taking that anxiety away from dieting and making it
Mhm.
very sustainable, like this is just how I'm going to balance out my life, just made it so much more easy. And you're not looking at food thinking, oh, you're just kind of looking ahead and saying like, okay, like this is what I've got on the horizon, so I can plan. I mean, it's no different than a big expense, like or a home renovation or buying a car or, how you're planning out your outfit. So, yeah, I thought it was very doable and it was very sensible. Again, having so many conversations with my patients where they tell me they did something that really worked for them, keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, sugar busters, whatever, and then they would stop and they would just yo-yo and they would end up to a totally different place. This isn't something that I'm doing for now. This is just how I eat. And because nothing's missing, then I don't feel like it's work. It's just an approach.
I appreciate that. And I love everything that you mentioned. It's so hard to describe to people the process. So thank you for laying it out. And when I did my own transformation, it took me about 14 months to get where I wanted to go. A lot of trial and error. It was very challenging, and I didn't have that accountability, which is why I strive to provide that daily accountability, to be your partner in this. And I was even doing the program with you, right? So you could see the
Yeah.
ins and outs of what I do. And I think that's why I think it's important to do this, because a lot of times when people try dieting or these types of approaches, it's always a massive overhaul, or just following
Yeah.
something very rigid, which can work short term or temporarily. But because we don't learn the skills or understanding what your preferences are, what your lifestyle is, it's so hard to sustain. Where, as with you, working with you and everyone else on who does this program, it's kind of meeting you first where you are and examining what you're doing. And like you said, oftentimes it's not massive overhauls or changes that need to be done. It's just strategic tweaks and
Yeah.
reframing things, or
Exactly.
having you look at things at a different perspective. And us, we never do restrictions. It's more of an addition mindset. Maybe if you can add more of this, this will
Oh, I never
normalize
thought about that, but
time.
you're right. It's true. Maybe if you add more of this, it's so true.
Yeah, because I think it's a human psychology thing. When you start trying to remove or take away things, you may crave or want it more. So
Yeah,
the way I
that's
like to
absolutely
approach
true.
is let's just try to add more of this, these portions, these types, using the stuff you like.
I
And
didn't even notice that. You're so sneaky.
yes, that's what I do. That's how you, when you do it without me having to say it, like without me having to say, oh yeah, you got to watch out for that. It's more of, you add it and see how it makes you feel, and then all of a sudden you normalize all these other things that may not necessarily align with you, and you made the change without having anyone to tell you to do it. And that's what I feel makes it more powerful, because you actually did it. I gave you
Right.
a little bit of guidance. I can't do the work for you, obviously, but there's guidance, and you guys try it, and then you find what works for you. And I think that daily incremental process is what you refine your own blueprint or formula. And like you, especially, I know you had a lot of the work and social outings, family gatherings. You traveled quite a few times,
Probably
but
for 5 weeks during the program.
yeah, you took the
Plus
education.
Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah, but like you took the tools and the skills and you applied it to how it would work for you, rather than getting it dictated and having to follow a certain way. And this is what I really want everyone to have, is that education and taking these tools and using it in a way that works for you. And everyone is so unique. So that's why I think, you did such a fabulous job because you just try to really mold everything to what works for you and have that blueprint and something that, again, at the end of the program, it's not like when people ask, oh, so are you still on that diet or that mighty transformation eating plan? And you're like, it's not a eating plan or a diet. It's
Or
just
your
the
eating
way I
plan?
eat now.
No.
It's just my lifestyle.
Yeah. I was having lunch the other day and I was like, oh, this is one of my go-to meals.
That's
Oh,
right.
look at that.
So yeah, it's been great. Already like when we attract people to this program, I do use a lot of before and after pictures because I feel that's what gets people looking, right?
Sure.
You talk about this lifestyle change, no one is really interested in it yet.
Yeah.
But this is what I truly want someone to get. But we do these before and afters to get the eyeballs, and then we
Yeah.
talk about the story, which we actually haven't even fully shared yet. You just shared one uh,
Yeah.
picture of your story, and you've already influenced a few physicians and some patients, some nurses to join the program. My question to you is because you've gone through this process and you have referred a few people, and some of them are already started and doing fabulous, who do you feel this type of program would be good for or would suit?
Um, like the program itself, like the content, I think you can apply to anyone, right? I think anybody who can use an app or two could probably make it work. And you know how much I love apps. Um, but I think the people that it resonates the most with, like if you're talking about people who resonate, are people in healthcare for all the reasons that we talked about. You got to walk the walk. But I think the other group of people that this can really like, I think there's a few groups. I think there's people who have always struggled with their weight and have tried a lot of these more restrictive diets. And I mean, you get discouraged by the failure associated with that. Like, oh, I've tried, I'm just not meant to be skinny. And I'm like you don't have to be skinny. You just have to be in a healthier body. And again, like there's a difference between body positivity and how you feel about being in your skin. And there's a different and it's very separate and distinct from having a healthy body. And that's something that, a lot of programs really focus on. Like it's like, oh, like we want to make you skinny. It's like the stuff that you teach us in the program isn't it's not even about like being 100% quote unquote clean eating, right? It's about managing that balance. So I think people who've been on restrictive diets who have really struggled with it and yo-yoed, I think that is a real game changer and eye opener for them. I would say like I mean, women tend to be at least more open about their struggle with weight, and especially that group, where you're kind of perimenopausal and everything seems to be falling apart because your hormones are doing wild things. You know, those women, they're not only noticing that their body is changing, they're noticing their mood is changing, their sleep is changing, and like and those changes are not all driven by food, but they are influenced by food. And I think people feel a lot better. They sleep better, they notice that they're not getting bloating, they not like even I noticed I wasn't getting bloating anymore, and I was like, oh, that was weird. I even messaged you about it. Hey, is that normal? I mean, truthfully, anybody who's motivated to show up, I tell people it can be tedious to show up every day. Like, I'm honest about that. I said there were days where there was too much going on. And like, I didn't have, like, sometimes I would, put up my post at 1 o'clock in the morning because I knew you were going to be asking me the next morning. And, there is an element of that that's tedious. And we had a conversation where you're like, do you find this hard? And I said to you, I can do hard things, right? I can do almost anything if I put my mind to it. I can do hard things, but I have to have a good reason to show up every day. And
Right.
for me, my list of whys was so big. I was like, I'm done with this. Like I'm completely done with this. I'm gonna do what it takes. People will push themselves in the gym, right? But if you have the discipline to push yourself in the gym or to push yourself at work or to raise children, why don't you have the discipline to control what you put in your mouth? Or to actually even get an education about how to eat strategically. I think that's also really important. You kind of have to evaluate your priorities and why you're willing to work so hard at one thing but not another.
Right.
Um, so I think if you sit down and you're honest with yourself about what you truly want and what you're willing to do to get it, then I think this program is ideal. And I have patients who are in their 30s or younger or in their 20s, and they're like, "What do you think about Ozempic?" And I'm like, "So what's your plan? Like you're just gonna do that for 50 or 60 years until you die?" Like that's not a good plan. You can't
Yeah.
do that forever. And then what happens when you come off the drug? Like, are you doing it to kickstart start something to, are you making behavioral changes at the same point? The reason people fail once they get off Ozempic is because they didn't treat the underlying problem.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I think pretty much anybody who's motivated can do it. You just have to decide if it's important enough to you.
Yeah, it's all about those priorities. And I'm glad you mentioned those drugs like Ozempic. Now that's more prevalent. Like when I started this program, it wasn't around, and now it is. Which, like you said, it can be a good kickstart, but unfortunately, without the proper habits and behaviors,
Yeah.
let alone the side effects that you can get with that.
I've seen people who've had to stop it because of side effects. I've seen people who've been successful with it. I've seen people who stopped using it and then bounced right back. Like this, if something seems too good to be true, it usually is. So, like taking a shortcut to the finish line doesn't ever work, ever. You have to put in the work. And did I find this program work? The eating part was easy. The posting was tedious. So that part was work. But like, how much work did I really put into that? 20 minutes a day? Like, people tell me that they want to hit the gym for an extra hour a day. I find it easier to find 20 minutes than 60.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, it's all about what you want to prioritize and what's important to you. So I think, yeah, the getting to that why is very important, and truly understanding what you want to accomplish. I guess the sad part is people's priorities, and I get it. We're all busy. We got careers, we got kids, and all sorts of things. And we always say our health is important, but not many of us prioritize it until it's too late. And
Or not many people realize that that can be too late, right? Like a lot of times it's like, oh, I didn't realize what was happening until my doctor talked to me about going on blood pressure medicine. And I'm
right,
like, if you drop 20 pounds, that blood pressure medicine is going to go away. Really? Like sometimes even the connection isn't even understood, right?
right,
You get so used to looking at yourself in the mirror that sometimes you don't even understand like that sort of cause and effect. It's not like you cut your hand with a knife and you bleed and you're like, oh, I cut myself, right? Sometimes you just get so used to what you're looking at in the mirror and your day-to-day behaviors that stepping back and looking at that cause and effect, it's not obvious. And the other part is it's a delicate conversation. People's self-esteem
mm,
is also tied to their appearance. And sometimes the way you have that conversation with people, like you don't want anybody to leave your office feeling like a bag of shit. But, oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Um, but you want people to feel like you're on their team. Like people come into my office, they're looking for help.
Yeah,
If I'm not telling them the whole truth about what their weight is doing to their health, then I'm not doing a good job. But I also have to be sensitive to the fact that they've probably tried and failed. They may be looking in the mirror not feeling good about themselves. They may not be feeling healthy, and absorbing that information can also be hard. And I hope that when they see me, I'm not into like these full body photos on social media in public, but I agree to share all that with you because I hope that people who I talk to, if they go and see me and they're like, that's my doctor. I talk to her a couple times a year, we've shared. I want them to be like, that's feasible. I can do this. And that's important for me. I need people to also see that it's achievable.
right. Thanks, Effie. I guess it goes back to that what you just said, the walking the talk, and being that positive role model and leader. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been very fruitful and informative. I think a lot of people, when they see these types of programs, they always just think just a weight loss, a number, like you said, how to get there as quick as possible. But really, truly a true transformation will take time. There is work. Uh, I tell everyone, I can't do the work for you. You got to show up. There's no shortcuts. You still got to do it, but I'm going to try to,
Right.
alleviate or remove a lot of obstacles and stuff that you don't need. A lot of the noise, right? This is what I wish I personally had when I was doing this, my own. Would have maybe it wouldn't have taken 14 months. But just you being here and telling your side, especially from your position and your education, I really, really appreciate it. And I want to thank you also for even educating your own patients, whether they do this program or not, but just with the knowledge that you now have, you can impart it to them. And again, having that positive ripple effect. And of course, the people that you've already referred, I'm so excited for them.
Excited. Oh,
Yeah,
I already saw some photos. They're so great.
and yeah, the energy levels are spiking. It's just so many great things that can happen in a relatively short amount of time with some consistency and work. So, Dr. Effie, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here and telling us about your journey, and look forward to possibly anyone else you may introduce us to in the future,
I
and
talk about it daily.
hopefully maybe in another capacity we could work together again at some
I
point.
would love that. I would love that. Thanks, Gil, so much.
Okay, thank you again, and have a great day.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.